Now, the next thing I do want to say in terms of my candidacy and my becoming the next mayor of the city of New York, I plan to raise the minimum wage to $27 per hour. And I plan to do that quickly and as effectively as I possibly can. One of the reasons why there is homelessness and there's crime and there are ghettos is because the people in those particular neighborhoods don't get the kind of pay that they get. And we only think that people who have college degrees should be well paid. But there's a truth out there now that's saying to a large number of people, you know, you go to college, you run up $150,000 college tuition bill and you get out and you barely can't find a job. And so a number of people are thinking that, well, if I can just get some good training and develop some skills, perhaps I don't need the college education. I'm not telling anybody not to go to college. God forbid. What I am saying is that there has been a structure that has been supported by working class people to only honor people with large degrees. You don't have to have a degree to run a bake shop. And I'm thinking about Truth LaFleur, who wants to run a bake shop. You don't have to have a college degree, you know, to run a small business, to open up a paint store, or open up a haberdashery store and make $300,000-$400,000 a year. You don't need a college degree to do that. What you need is a structured skill. So what I'm going to do is by raising the minimum wage, that'll give everybody at least a running start. Then we're going to create a, if you will, if you must, gentrification housing loan pool where people who are physically anchored, spiritually anchored, can go and borrow and buy a house, borrow up to $2-3 million to buy a house. And a part of the commitment of the loan that they would get at a very low interest rate, of no interest at all, is that they would take in a homeless family. That they would take in a family. We have a family in our church like Brother Broner. I'm not sure where he's living right now. He's got 3 children, his wife. They all come to church on Saturday, and the baby just cries and interrupts my sermon like you won't believe. The baby don't do anything until I start preaching. But a family like that needs an opportunity. If, let's say, for instance, that Elder Smith buys a home, buys one of the brownstones you'll see across the street. That's a 3-family house. He rents out a whole floor to the Broner family. They have to pay him rent. He now has to manage the house. We want to replicate that kind of an event into the neighborhoods. And if we can get people who are working at a minimum wage of $27 per hour, making at least $50,000 per hour, $50,000 to $700,000 to $70,000 per year, then they can afford the rent. Now, they'll still be skimping. I plan, listen to this, and I'll say this to the gentrifiers. While I've been definitely against your moving into this community, but I've told you over the years, you have not realized your dream of an ideal community where you paid $5-6 million for a house and you're now living in an Astor neighborhood. It isn't happening. But here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do, gentrifiers and everybody else. First of all, there needs to be some reconciliation, and gentrifiers need to come to talk to me. But I'm going to clean up. If you walk down 125th Street here in Harlem in New York City, it's now ATLAH, you see people sleeping on the street. You see all kinds of disparaging, if you will, kinds of activities going on 125th Street, people that are on drugs, people that have no mattress, have no spoon, have no curtain, have no table. Every curtain, a table, or napkin that they use, or toilet that they use, or toilet paper that they use belongs to somebody else. I'm going to sweep 125th Street broom clean, where it'll look like, well, we were in Paris several years ago, and I think that we were on what was known as the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Terrace or Street. It's right near the Champs-Élysées, and not too far away from the Eiffel Tower. Beautiful community, beautiful neighborhood, absolutely beautiful. Well, better yet, I'm going to have the streets of Harlem look like 62nd Street on the east side, between the 3rd and 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue, all those beautiful streets where there's never anything awry, never a garbage can out of place, never a litter on the street, just very beautiful tree-lined community. I'm going to sweep Harlem broom clean. And by the way, can I say this to you? Years ago when I first took the helm of this ministry, I used to have the men of this church that we had 100, 200, 300 men sleeping in the building at night. Well, one of the things I would have them do in the mornings, get up early in the mornings and take brooms and see that sidewalk, see that man walking down the street, sweep that sidewalk all the way down to 110th Street. From here, that's 13 blocks. And then sweep all the way up to 135th Street. And then sweep both sides of the street every morning. They would get out with a bunch of these heavy-duty brooms. I sent 30, 40 men out to sweep the streets. I did this for years. I'll say this to the gentrifiers and to all New Yorkers and all visitors to New York. The first year of my becoming the mayor of the city of New York, and at the conclusion or the beginning of the second year, Harlem will be broom clean. It will be swept broom clean. There'll be nobody sleeping on the streets. There'll be no litter on the streets. The streets themselves will be clean. It'll be a delightful, delectable place. You can actually eat off the streets. That's how broom clean I'm going to streets. But not only that, I'm going to, by the process of raising the minimum wage, then encouraging people to own businesses again in Harlem, encouraging people to buy homes, get equity, rent out that space, learn how to manage it. And the minimum wage itself, and by no food sales tax. Wherever you go to buy food, you will not pay tax. And to relieving all the bodegas of sales tax, the city of New York is going to have to take a hit in the pocket. I'm going to tell you this right now. Right now, the city budget is $114 billion per year. Well, y'all going to have to take a hit in the pocket. The city of New York, you got to tighten your belt. When I become the mayor of the city of New York, you got to tighten your belt. A lot of waste money. I see a lot of money that's wasted for things such as, plug-ins on the street for your phone and all kinds of other stuff about bus schedules and whatnot that really isn't necessary. We're going to cut back on some of those things. The city of New York needs to cut back. You're going to have to take a hit in your budget, the city of New York. And we're going to direct that money that's going to the city of New York to then go to all the people that are profiting, the manufacturers, the business, people got contracts with the city. Y'all going to have to take a cut. And we're going to infuse that money back into the community at the rate of $41 billion a year. Now, if you can imagine, think about this for just a second, and I'll outline this. I'll have our accountant outline this for you. Think about this for just a second. The entire budget of the city of New York for the police department, for the fire department, for all other departments, for the education department, 900,000 students, is $114 billion a year, per year. Is that right? That's how much it is. Imagine by redirecting, reinvigorating the people that are unproductive, that are not working, that are not paying taxes, getting back in the workforce, getting back on the tax rolls, getting back on the ownership rolls, getting back in the rental rolls, getting back into having money in the local neighborhood would reproduce $41 billion. That's nearly a third of the budget. And that would be money that would be coming into so-called marginalized neighborhoods, if you want to call them that. I'm not sure that's what I want to call them. It's just God's plan. It's just a plan that God has put forward. And it would make New York City, the streets of New York City, broom clean. There'll be no litter. There'll be no people on the street sleeping. There'll be no riffraff. And when I was growing up in North Carolina, there was a man who had some psychological problems, and he lived with his family, and there were several women that lived in the house. They had a decent house, and one of the things I liked about them, they had outside in their yard, because they had a big yard in the house on their street next to the AME Church, was they had a place where they grew grapes. Anyway, so this man was a little bit off. And so most of us, when we were young, would be afraid to go by the house because we know he's sitting on the porch. He'd come out and chase us and run after us. And sometimes he'd do that. Sometimes he'd come out, he'd chase you, he'd run after you. We'd all run and scatter. But they let him stay in the house. He was a little bit crazy, but they let him stay in the house. See, the problem, the blessing with me is that I grew up at a time when no matter what happened, every man and every woman and every boy and every girl had a bed to go to at night, no matter how impoverished the time. Even during the time of the Great Depression, every man, every woman, and every boy and every girl had a bed at night because the families took them in, even though some of them were a little bit crazy, some of them had problems, etc. But we all dealt with it. We all dealt with it. Nobody slept on the streets. We can bring that back. We've lost our way, and I'll tell you why we've lost our way, because our leaders are hypocrites. They are worse than hypocrites. They're satanic. And the rules of life, the rules of civic, if you will, family structure, they're all, if you will, hypocrites at the very best of them, are satanic at the very. There is no all this business about blaming white folk for everything that ever goes wrong with black folk. The white man's ice. If you go buy a block of ice, and the white man buys a block, and the white man sells the white man a block, and the white man sells the white man will sell the black man a block of ice that's not as cold as the white man's ice. I mean, that's all you hear out of the mouth of these so-called black college professors at Princeton and these Cornell West and these Eddie Gloyds and these George Van Jones and all of these news commentators, and everything is the white man's ice is colder. The white man gets he buys, you buy from the same place, but the white man gives you a lesser product. I mean, it is ridiculous how insane this has become over the last 60 years. And if you're too young to realize, when even during the time of Jim Crow, every man had a bed to sleep in. Every child had a bed to sleep in. Every child had a father in their home. None of this nonsense, this perversion that you hear on a daily basis coming out of the mouth of these hypocrites. And now they've gone even worse by wanting the men to become homosexual men, the women to become lesbian women. It's madness. I will, to the gentrifiers, you probably thought you'd never hear this from me, but I'm going to increase the property of your property value. Gentrifiers, I'm going to increase your property values because I'm going to take all the riffraff out of the community, and not by using the police and cracking heads. I'm going to take it out by simply employing the biblical principles and showing the spirit of love and stopping the lying and stopping the profiting, stopping, if you will, the cottage industry that a lot of these pinch-nosed Negroes, they make all their money by blaming white folk and stirring up anger with black folk to be angry with white folk. And they've been intermediaries. That's how they make their millions of dollars. They do it in the movies. Even if they got making money as athletes. I'm going to the gentrifiers. I am going to improve your property value by cleaning the streets and making the neighborhood safer, cleaner, and without using police or the fire department. That's right. That's what I'm going to do. I've done it for years. I used to sweep the streets of this community for years. And I used to clean up, wouldn't let people go out of the building that were unkempt, and I gave a man a bed to sleep in. So we need to be mindful of what's coming with me as the mayor of the city of New York. But I do plan to, and I'll close with this. The budget right now, the city of New York is $140 billion. I plan to make New York City a classic, upgraded city where poverty has been abolished, homelessness has been abolished. I do plan to say this. I do want to remind everyone that I'm going to keep the street vendors, but they're going to have to, clean up their act, polish up their act, get their act together. I will require street vendors to wear uniforms based on the logos of their business, whatever they're profiting, whatever they're selling. But there's enough room on 125th Street for the street vendors and the store owners. And listen, this is America, I'm a capitalist in that regard. And so let the best man win. I think the street vendors need to be able, I consider them small businesses. Now, they're going to have to wear uniforms. They're going to have to be fully responsible for the whitewashing of their sidewalk, for the cleaning, and for the presentation of their wares. And they can do that. That's not a problem. Most of them would be willing to do it. But I'm going to make Harlem in particular, the streets so clean. When I say to you, Harlem is going to be, the streets are going to be broom swept clean. Broom swept. You won't see anybody sleeping on the street. You won't see anybody vagabonding on. I'm going to make Harlem the entire community of Harlem broom swept clean. 135th, 145th, 116th, 110th, 7th Avenue, 8th Avenue, Lenox Avenue, Lexington Avenue, broom swept clean. I said this 34 years ago, that the streets would be so clean you could take off your shoes and walk barefoot. I'm going to show you a picture of myself and Elizabeth actually on the street, out in front of the church, walking barefoot 34 years ago. I was a much younger man. Elizabeth was a little bit younger too. But I said I was going to make the streets swept clean. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that as the mayor of the city of New York. And again, I'm going to bring $41 billion. Now, if you look at the economic commerce of Wall Street down in that region, I suppose that annually they go over the $1 trillion mark in terms of sales, of stocks, of trading, of businesses, of mergers, of banking. All of that they do probably beyond $1 billion. And New York just gets a small chunk of that, of $114 billion to run the city of New York. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to turn Harlem into a black Wall Street. Well, no, that's a phrase that came from back in the 1920s in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No, I'm going to turn Harlem into an ATLAH Wall Street, to a righteous Wall Street, where, and Bed-Stuy too, and Fort Greene, and South Jamaica, and East New York, and all of those regions I'm going to turn into a profitable area where there'll be 41 billion, imagine this in South Jamaica, imagine this in Bed-Stuy, $41 billion now being poured into these neighborhoods. How it would change the clothing that the people wear, the cars that they drive, the houses that they live in, and it would upscale the city of New York in ways probably nobody ever dreamed of in terms of New York being an upscale city. We'll be the new Dubai of the Western world, to be absolutely sure. Hey, Mondami, what's my name? What's my name? What's my name?
James Manning.
When you go into that voting booth on the 4th of November here in the New York City mayoral election, and when you go in there, whose name you're going to print in the write-in section? Whose name you're going to print in the write-in section on the ballot, Mondami? Who you going to print? Whose name?
James Manning.
Hey, Mondami, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Whose name you're going to print on the write-in section on the ballot on November 4th here in the New York City mayoral election?
James Manning.
All right now, let's get it on.